Bob Seger once had a #1 song, yet he still considers it one of his worst financial blunders, because he gave away the writing credit on a track that made millions. His career was full of puzzling choices, rejecting Hollywood when everyone called him crazy, and silently carrying the emotional weight after his drummer was left paralyzed at 28. But the rarely discussed event occurred in 1988, when he vanished at the peak of his fame. The music industry thought he was done, and fans feared something was terribly wrong. The true reason behind his withdrawal, however, reveals more about his character than any lyric ever could. Born on May 6, 1945, at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, Bob Seger was the second son of Charlotte and Stuart Seger. The family initially lived a working-class life typical of post-war Detroit. Stuart worked as a medical technician for Ford and played several instruments, so music filled the rooms where Bob grew up, mingling with radios, records, and the constant hum of a factory town. Yet the home was far from steady. His parents fought constantly, their arguments spilling into the neighborhood with shouting, slamming doors, and crying that neighbors could hear late at night. For a child, such noise creates a profound inner shift. A bedroom becomes a place to brace for the next storm. While other kids enjoyed carefree childhoods, Bob learned to stay vigilant, gauge moods, and endure a tension that never left the air. That fear and unpredictability would later surface in the emotional depth of his song characters. People who feel trapped or desperate even when surrounded by others. The family's biggest fracture came in 1956. Bob was just 10 when his father left. Stuart, battling alcoholism, moved to California, abandoning Charlotte, Bob, and older brother George. It wasn't simply a man leaving. It was the entire notion of security ripped away overnight. Charlotte was suddenly both parents, juggling money problems, daily struggles, and emotional chaos with no support. Bob later said that moment ended something inside him. The simple trust of childhood was broken. In its place grew a deep mistrust of men who abandoned their families. The family's decline was rapid. They slipped from comfort into hardship, moving into smaller, poorer housing where luxuries vanished, and even basic items became careful choices. Bob watched his mother fight to keep their home together, working hard yet always falling short. That image didn't make him weak, it made him driven. He craved a different future, not only for himself, but because he had seen a parent carry everything alone. That's when music transformed from a hobby into a lifeline. When the house felt suffocating, the radio became an escape. Bob said Little Richard was the first artist who truly connected with him. Those songs didn't whisper. They exploded around 1956 and 1957. Their wild energy could drown out the yelling downstairs. Elvis Presley also came through the speakers, offering freedom and excitement his home never provided. Rock and roll was loud, cheap, and emotional, making a kid feel another world existed beyond the walls. In 1957, his first record purchase was Come Go With Me by the Dell Vikings. That small moment sparked an obsession that would define his life. By 13, that obsession shifted from listening to creating. In 1961, he wrote his first song, The Lonely One, recording a demo with his band, the D-Cells, at Del Shannon Studio in Ann Arbor. The group was a tight trio of high school kids hungry for something bigger than homework. Seger handled guitar, piano, keyboards, and vocals. Pete Stanganger played guitar. H.B. Hunter played drums. That demo aired exactly once on a local Ann Arbor station, giving him his first taste of being heard beyond his room. Then the tape vanished for 60 years, resurfacing only in 2021 when it aired twice on Detroit's WCSX-FM with Seger's permission. A time capsule from a kid already trying to write his way out. The D-Cells evolved from a doo-wop group into a full rock band, pushing Seger toward a bigger sound and original writing. When the Beatles hit American radio in 1964, they ignited a generation. Covers could pay bills, but songwriting could make you somebody. Another Michigan kid chased the same dream. Glenn Frey, future founder of the Eagles. Their paths crossed in Detroit clubs, sharing the hunger to stand out with original songs. Seger's road was neither smooth nor glamorous. After the D-Cells, he joined the Town Criers, then connected with Doug Brown of the Omens, playing organ even though Brown led vocals. In March 1965, they released TGIF on Hideout Records, but the recording didn't credit Seger's name properly. It came out under Doug Brown and the Omens. Still, he kept pushing. He also appeared on a parody called Ballad of the Yellow Beret, until legal threats shut it down. That was Detroit music life, loud, fast, risky. Around that time, he met Edward "Punch" Andrews at a bowling alley gig. Their partnership became one of the longest in rock history. Punch owned the Hideout Club and co-founded the label, staying with Seger through fights, bankruptcies, lean years, and comebacks from 1965 to his retirement in 2019. In February 1966, Seger released East Side Story as Bob Seger and the Last Herd. The song exploded locally, selling 50,000 copies in Detroit and topping Midwest charts. Cameo Parkway Records signed him quickly. Then, in April 1967, they released Heavy Music, reaching Billboard's bubbling under list at 103. Seger was 22, standing on the edge of something big. But in June 1967, Cameo Parkway went bankrupt. Promotions halted, momentum died, royalties became a mess. 1 week, you're building a future. The next, doors are padlocked. Still, he pushed forward. In 1968, after signing with Capitol Records, Seger scored his first national hit with Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, reaching number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100. Glenn Frey, still unknown, provided backing vocals and acoustic guitar, his first professional studio recording. But even after a hit, the industry twisted the knife. In 1969, Capitol forced guitarist Tom Neame into the Bob Seger system as a co-leader for the album Noah. Neame wrote and sang lead on 6 of 10 tracks, while Seger handled only 5. The album flopped. Seger briefly quit, tried college for 6 weeks, and only returned when the band begged him. Mongrel came out in August 1970, peaking around number 171, and Capitol dropped him. At 25, he was broke and without a label, leaning on Punch Andrews and a smaller setup, releasing Smokin' Oh Peace back in 72 and 7. They did better in Michigan than anywhere else, but nationally he remained invisible. During a session at Muscle Shoals Sound Studio in Alabama, producers quoted $1,500 aside. Seger thought that meant per album side. They cut 3 tracks on day 1, including Van Morrison's I've Been Working. Then Punch told him the truth. It was $1,500 per song. The budget exploded. The plan collapsed. Around 1973 to 1974, Seger made a brutal decision to stop playing lead guitar and focus on singing and writing. Chasing big riffs was wrecking his voice and stealing time from songwriting. Handing that role to Drew Abbott freed him to craft songs that would eventually change everything. By October 1973, the Silver Bullet Band formed from Detroit-area players chasing survival, not polish. The lineup included bassist Chris Campbell, with Seger since 1969, saxophonist Alto Reed, guitarist Drew Abbott, keyboardists Rick Manassa and later Robin Robbins, and drummer Charlie Allen Martin. In 1974 alone, they played 265 shows. On one brutal run, ending December 31, 1974, they played in Miami and drove 1,300 miles straight back to Detroit, 25.5 hours, without stopping, because hotels cost too much. Seger held the wheel the longest. That exhaustion seeped into the music, which is why Turn the Page feels like someone telling the truth while the road rushes by. One night, they might open for Kiss in a Florida arena. Soon after, they'd headline a smoky bar for 50 people. No private jets, only station wagons piled with gear, cheap food, and stubborn belief. On September 4th and 5th, 1975, they recorded Live Bullet at Cobo Hall in Detroit in front of 26,000 fans across 2 nights. Released on April 12, 1976, it became the turning point. Yet even as it grew, the contrast remained unreal. On June 26, 1976, Seger headlined the Pontiac Silverdome for 76,000 fans. But days earlier, on June 23rd, he had played a small club in Schaumburg, Illinois, to only a few hundred people. That's the gap between talent and recognition. Then, in February 1977, drummer Charlie Allen Martin was hit by a car and left paralyzed from the waist down at 28. Seger mourned him deeply. In October 1976, Night Moves came out, his 9th studio album. carrying the Silver Bullet Band's name for the first time. For tracks were cut with a Muscle Shoals rhythm section. Seger had been grinding since 1961. He tasted local success with East Side Story and cracked national charts with Ramblin' Gamblin' Man. But 7 more albums made little noise outside the Midwest. By the time Beautiful Loser arrived in 1975, it had sold only 200,000 copies, mostly regionally. 15 years of hauling gear led to this moment. When Night Moves climbed to number 8 on the Billboard chart and sold 6 million copies, the long wait exploded into stardom. Seger was 31, and suddenly the world was listening. When the title track hit number 4 in early 1977, Seger felt old compared to younger, already famous peers. But the long road shaped him. He once said those years of struggle helped him stay steady. Success flipped his life overnight, from station wagons to jets. Live Bullet sold 6 million, Night Moves sealed it. By 1977, he headlined the Pontiac Silverdome before 80,000 fans. Beautiful Loser jumped from 200,000 to 2 million in sales. What looked like overnight success was really 15 years of stubborn persistence. But success brought fear. After Night Moves sold 6 million and Stranger in Town sold over 7 million in 1978, Seger felt platinum paranoia. He recorded Brave Strangers with 168 takes before choosing take 7. The anxiety lingered into Against the Wind in 1980, his only number 1 album, which stayed at the top for 6 weeks. His personal life suffered. A 364-day marriage to Renee Andretti, a long relationship with Jan Dinsdale torn apart by touring, a 1-year marriage to actress Annette Sinclair, and finally stability with Juanita Doricott in 1993, raising 2 children. In 1978, he rewrote most of the lyrics to Old-Time Rock and Roll, but passed on a writing credit, thinking it was filler. When Risky Business made it a hit in 1983, it became one of the most played jukebox songs in America. Seger called skipping the credit the dumbest financial move he ever made. Then came Shakedown in 1987, first meant for Glenn Frey for Beverly Hills Cop 2. Frey lost his voice to laryngitis and asked Seger to step in. On August 1, 1987, it hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, his only chart topper, earning an Oscar nomination. The American Storm Tour stretched across 106 shows in 9 months, selling nearly 1.5 million tickets. At 41, he vowed it would be his last major run. In 1988, at the height of his fame, he stepped away to care for his dying mother, Charlotte, who passed on February 20, 1989. Industry insiders thought it was career suicide. He didn't care. His father had left when he was 10, and he refused to repeat that absence. Later, after a massive 1996 tour, he vanished from music for nearly a decade, focusing on his children. He coached their sports teams and stayed home. During that quiet stretch, he poured his energy into sailing. In 2001 and 2002, his 52-foot boat, Lightning, won major divisions in the Bayview-Mackinac race. When he returned with Face the Promise in 2006, it sold 400,000 copies in its first 45 days and went platinum. A decade away had not dimmed the connection. Through it all, the Silver Bullet Band stayed loyal. When Glenn Frey died on January 18, 2016, Seger was shattered. A year later, he released Glenn's song for free on his website. In 2017, during his Runaway Train tour, Seger suffered a ruptured disc in his neck, canceled 19 shows, and underwent surgery. Recovery was brutal, but he fought back, ending his road career in Philadelphia on November 1, 2019. After more than 50 years of touring, he entered the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004 and the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2012. Against the Wind earned a Grammy, and Rolling Stone later ranked him among the greatest singers.